The barren desert stretched for miles, a sea of sand under a harsh, red sky. Small rocks jutted from the ground like broken teeth, and the wind howled like lost souls. Among the dunes, a small figure stumbled, dragging weak legs through the endless heat. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the burning sunlight, and her eyes, wide with fear, scanned the horizon. She was not human, at least not fully, with slender limbs, strange markings along her arms, and ears that curved slightly backward. Her breaths came in shallow gasps, each one shaking her small frame. She had been abandoned, left to die in this desolate world, with nothing but the scorching sun and hungry winds as companions. The girl's name was Lyra, and she remembered little of how she had come here. Only flashes, shouts, flashing lights, and the sound of metal doors slamming. Now, alone, she crawled across the sand, hoping for a miracle that seemed impossible. Every step felt heavier than the last, her body trembling from hunger and exhaustion. Her stomach growled painfully, reminding her that she had not eaten in days. Water had long since run out, and the few insects that buzzed near her were more dangerous than food. Yet, even as her strength faded, her spirit refused to surrender. Above her, strange shapes moved in the sky, alien ships glinting under the harsh sun. They were scouts from her own kind, but they passed without noticing her. She cursed her luck quietly, knowing that rescue would not come from them. Lyra sank to her knees, touching the sand with her trembling hands. Memories of warmth, laughter, and safety flickered in her mind, but they felt like another lifetime. Her eyes closed, and she let the wind wash over her, hoping for a sign, any sign. Far away, a small human settlement rested near the edge of a rocky plateau. Among its inhabitants, one man walked slowly, carrying a small pack with his last meal. His name was Eli, a miner who had ventured far from the settlement in search of rare minerals. Eli noticed movement in the distance, a shadow crawling along the sand. He squinted against the sun, unsure what he saw, but something inside him stirred, a feeling he could not ignore. Curiosity mixed with concern, and he adjusted his pack, preparing for the trek toward the figure. Meanwhile, Lyra's vision blurred, and she fell to the ground, sand clinging to her skin. She tried to speak, but no words came, only faint cries that were swallowed by the wind. Her limbs felt like lead, and the world tilted around her. In that moment, she thought she would never rise again, that the desert would claim her as it had claimed so many. But a small sound cut through the silence, a footstep, soft but distinct, crunching over the sand. Her eyes fluttered open, disbelief and hope battling inside her. She saw a human approaching, a man with a kind face and a cautious gait. Eli knelt beside her, setting down the small bag of food he carried. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but steady. Lyra stared at him, her mouth dry, unable to respond. He extended a hand, not touching her, just offering hope. She hesitated, fear and suspicion clouding her mind, but the hunger and weakness drove her forward. Slowly, she took the offered food, trembling as she ate, her body reacting to the first nourishment in days. Eli watched quietly, giving her space, understanding that trust was not given easily. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the dunes, and the desert seemed less endless, less cruel. For the first time in days, Lyra felt a flicker of something she had almost forgotten: safety. Above, alien ships circled silently, scanning, observing, but not intervening. Lyra's strange markings shimmered faintly in the fading light, a reminder of her otherworldly origin. Eli, unaware of her full story, simply offered the comfort he could, a human's last meal, shared in a world that had tried to take everything from her. As night approached, the wind softened, and Lyra leaned slightly against him. Her journey was far from over, the dangers still ahead, but the first step had been taken. And for now, she was alive, and that was enough. The desert night loomed, filled with unknown threats and silent watchers. But Lyra's small heartbeat, steadying with each bite, marked the beginning of something new. Somewhere between fear and hope, hunger and relief, a bond began to form. One that could change the fate of worlds, and perhaps, one day, the stars themselves would remember this night. Night fell quickly over the desert, the red sky fading to deep violet. Lyra huddled near Eli, the small fire he built casting flickering shadows across the sand. Her stomach finally quieted, but her body still trembled from weakness and fear. Eli kept watch silently, eyes scanning the horizon, sensing that the desert was never truly empty. Something moved just beyond the firelight, a ripple in the dunes that made Lyra's ears twitch. She had never seen predators like this before, their shapes alien, lithe, and almost invisible in the darkness. Her instincts screamed to run, but her legs were still too weak. Eli noticed her tension, offering a calm smile. "They won't touch us if we stay quiet," he whispered, though even he felt the chill crawling along his spine. The sand shifted, a soft hiss brushing their ears, and shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally. Lyra held her breath, feeling the alien presence pressing closer. She could almost hear whispers in the wind, voices that spoke in a language she did not know. Her eyes widened, realizing that the desert itself was alive in a way she could not understand. Suddenly, a shadow lunged from the darkness, fast and low. Eli jumped, grabbing a rock and hurling it at the moving shape. The creature yelped and disappeared, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air. Lyra gasped, gripping his arm tightly, fear and awe mixing in her mind. "Stay calm," Eli said, his voice steady though his hands shook. "They only hunt when they think we are weak," he explained, eyes never leaving the darkness. Lyra nodded slowly, her alien senses alert, picking up vibrations in the sand. The desert was testing them, probing for weakness, and she could feel it in every trembling grain. Hours passed slowly, each shadow a possible threat, each sound amplified in the quiet night. Lyra's thoughts wandered to her past, flashes of her homeworld, her family, and the moment she was left behind. A bitter feeling settled in her chest, but she pushed it aside, focusing on survival. She realized that she had no choice but to trust Eli, the human who had given her life when the desert tried to take it. Eli noticed her staring into the darkness and nodded. "Trust me, Lyra, we make it through this night together," he said softly. For the first time since she had been abandoned, Lyra believed it might be possible. Then, a distant hum rose in the air, low and mechanical. Lyra froze, sensing that it was not from this world. Her pupils dilated as she recognized the energy signature, alien and dangerous. Eli looked up, frowning, sensing it too, though he did not understand what it meant. The hum grew louder, and suddenly, lights appeared on the horizon, blinking rapidly. Shadows in the distance moved in a synchronized pattern, too deliberate to be natural. Lyra felt her heart race, knowing they were not alone, not even far from the desert's edge. The creatures of the sand began to retreat, sensing the new presence. Eli grabbed Lyra's hand, pulling her back toward the small fire. "We need to move," he whispered urgently. Lyra's small body obeyed, and together they crouched low, heading toward a rocky ridge she could barely see. The glowing lights drew closer, illuminating the dunes like a second sun. Lyra could feel the energy pulse through the sand, through her body, and she shivered. She realized that the night was far from safe, and the desert had just revealed its first real threat. As they climbed the ridge, Lyra's alien instincts guided her, sensing safe footholds and hidden traps. Eli followed, trusting her movements even though he did not understand them. When they reached the top, they paused, breathless, staring down at the glowing figures moving across the desert. Ships unlike any humans had built, sleek, alien, and deadly, scanning the sand with beams of light. Lyra's stomach clenched, but she did not panic. Eli tightened his grip on her hand, the firelight from their small camp far behind them. For the first time, she realized that her survival depended not just on her strength, but on the bond forming between them. And that bond would be tested more than either of them could imagine. The night stretched endlessly, filled with danger and whispers. But Lyra and Eli crouched together, two lives against a desert of shadows and alien machines. Neither knew what the dawn would bring, only that they had survived this long. And that survival was only the beginning. The first light of dawn crept over the desert, painting the dunes in soft gold. Lyra and Eli remained atop the rocky ridge, eyes scanning the sand below. The alien ships had vanished with the night, but the danger they represented lingered. Lyra's body was weak, Yet her senses were sharper than ever, every vibration in the sand screaming warnings. Eli glanced at her, noticing the strange markings along her arms glowing faintly in the morning light. He wanted to ask questions, but something in her gaze stopped him. A silent message passed between them. Trust would come later, survival first. Slowly, they descended the ridge, moving carefully across jagged rocks and shifting sand. Every step was measured, every sound a potential signal of danger. Lyra's memories flickered again, shards of a world she barely remembered. A planet of strange cities, towering spires, and creatures unlike any human. She remembered a war, a betrayal, and the moment she was left behind. Her heart clenched at the thought of those who had abandoned her. But she pushed the pain aside, focusing on the only thing that mattered now, staying alive. Eli led her toward a small canyon, a natural shelter he had spotted from the ridge. They crouched low as they approached, the canyon walls casting long shadows across the sand. Suddenly, a faint hum vibrated through the ground, subtle but unnerving. Lyra's eyes widened, recognizing the energy. Alien, intelligent, searching. She whispered to Eli, "They're coming back," her voice trembling yet determined. Eli tightened his grip on her hand, nodding silently. They moved quickly into the canyon, hiding behind boulders, watching as sleek alien scouts glided across the dunes. The scouts were searching, scanning, but not yet finding them. Lyra crouched low, sensing the presence of more than just the ships. The desert itself seemed alive, shadows shifting unnaturally, small predators lurking. She realized that her world and this human world were colliding in ways she could not yet understand. Eli tried to follow her gaze, but all he saw were shadows and distant light. Lyra's small fingers brushed against a faintly glowing crystal embedded in the canyon wall. It pulsed softly, reacting to her touch. A memory stirred. Her people used these crystals for guidance, protection, and communication. Lyra understood that this canyon might hold secrets that could save them or betray them. Hours passed with tension thick in the air. The alien scouts returned, moving closer, their lights sweeping across the sand. Lyra and Eli remained hidden, hearts pounding, each sound threatening to reveal their position. Eli whispered softly, "We can't stay here forever." Lyra nodded, her mind racing, calculating risks, sensing patterns in the scouts' movements. She realized that escape required more than running. It required strategy, patience, and a spark of luck. Then, from the far canyon entrance, a low rumble shook the ground. Both turned sharply, sensing something massive approaching. Sand and dust swirled, revealing a creature larger than any they had seen, its body armored and glinting under the sun. Lyra froze, recognizing the alien predator, part of her old world, a hunter sent to track her. Eli stepped protectively in front of her, grabbing a long piece of metal for defense. The creature's eyes glowed, scanning, sensing life, hunger, and fear. Lyra whispered urgently, "We have to move now." Eli nodded, trusting her instincts, and together they darted deeper into the canyon. The massive predator followed, its steps causing the ground to tremble, dust and small rocks cascading down the walls. Lyra's heart raced, but her determination burned brighter. This was no longer just survival. This was a fight for life against an enemy from both worlds. The canyon twisted and turned, a maze of shadows and light. Lyra led, guided by memory, instinct, and the faint glow of the crystals. Eli followed closely, adrenaline sharpening every sense. Behind them, the predator's roar echoed, a promise of relentless pursuit. And above, alien scouts still scanned the dunes, unaware of the small, flickering hope hidden in the canyon. For the first time, Lyra realized that she was not just running from death. She was learning to fight, to strategize, to survive with a human by her side. The bond between them grew stronger, forged in the heat of the desert, the shadow of predators, and the silent threat of alien hunters. And in that bond, they found the first spark of hope, a hope that would have to burn brighter than the desert sun if they were to survive what was coming. Lyra and Eli ran deeper into the twisting canyon, the morning sun now bright above the dunes. The massive predator's footsteps echoed behind them, a thunderous reminder that death was close. Lyra's alien senses guided her, detecting subtle vibrations in the walls, hidden paths, and loose stones. Eli followed closely, his heart pounding, adrenaline sharpening his movements. He trusted her instincts more than his own knowledge, knowing that she understood this world in ways he never could. Suddenly, the canyon opened into a hidden chamber, walls glowing faintly with the same crystals Lyra had touched earlier. The predator skidded to a halt at the chamber's entrance, its glowing eyes scanning for movement. Lyra whispered urgently, "These crystals can hide us, but we must be careful." She pressed her hands against the crystals, and a soft light enveloped them, bending shadows and confusing the predator. Eli shielded her instinctively, feeling the strange energy hum through the air. The predator growled, swiping at the crystals, but the light repelled it, forcing it to retreat. Lyra exhaled softly, her body trembling from relief and exhaustion. "This canyon, it's not just a shelter," she murmured. "It's a guardian of some kind." As they moved further into the chamber, Lyra noticed faint markings along the walls, alien symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the crystals. Her memory stirred again. Her people had used these symbols for guidance, communication, and protection. "This place remembers me," she whispered, a strange warmth filling her chest. Eli crouched beside her, listening, sensing that the crystals held power beyond human understanding. He asked cautiously, "Can they help us fight the hunters?" Lyra nodded slowly. "They can hide us, guide us, maybe even warn us. But we must learn quickly." The chamber offered a temporary safety, but danger lingered outside. From the canyon entrance, the alien scouts had returned, moving with precision, scanning for life signs. Lyra's eyes narrowed as she studied their patterns, her small body tense. Eli watched silently, realizing that survival required more than strength. It required intelligence and instinct combined. Lyra touched the walls, tracing the symbols, and a faint glow spread across the chamber floor. It formed a path, subtle yet visible, guiding them deeper into the canyon. "The crystals know where it's safe," Lyra explained, her voice steady despite exhaustion. Eli nodded, following her lead, trusting the strange guidance. As they moved, Lyra sensed more than just the predator and scouts. Energy ripples hinted at something larger approaching, something that could change everything. Hours passed in cautious movement, the canyon twisting like a maze. Lyra guided Eli through narrow passages, avoiding natural traps and hidden pitfalls. The predator had vanished, but the alien scouts still hovered, searching, analyzing, never giving up. Lyra realized that the scouts were not the only threat. Something far more dangerous waited beyond the canyon walls. Eli's eyes scanned the shadows, questioning what she could not explain. Suddenly, a low hum rose from the crystals themselves, vibrating in resonance with Lyra's heartbeat. The chamber responded, glowing brighter, casting long, twisting shadows that danced across the walls. Lyra whispered urgently, "They recognize me. They remember my people." Eli's jaw tightened, realizing that the small girl he had saved held secrets of a world he could not imagine. As night approached again, the canyon offered more than shelter. It offered knowledge. Lyra began to teach Eli what she could, pointing out patterns in the crystals, warning him of dangers in the desert. Together, they learned to move silently, to hide in shadows, to trust instincts over sight. The bond between them grew stronger, a mix of necessity, trust, and unspoken understanding. Outside, alien scouts circled, unaware that their prey was learning to outsmart them. The canyon's hidden energy pulsed like a heartbeat, a guide and protector. Lyra's strength returned slowly, fueled by hope, guidance, and the presence of a human who refused to leave her behind. For the first time, she realized that survival was no longer just about escaping. It was about learning, adapting, and preparing for the challenges that would come with the rising threat. And in that glowing chamber, amidst shadows, crystals, and the whispers of her lost world, Lyra and Eli prepared for the next step of their journey, a step that could lead them to safety or into the heart of danger. The desert night pressed close, cold and silent, but danger lurked everywhere. Lyra and Eli moved carefully through the canyon's twisting passages, the faint glow of crystals guiding their path. Her senses sharpened, alert to every vibration, every whisper of movement. Eli followed closely, feeling the weight of responsibility, knowing that one mistake could cost them their lives. Above them, alien scouts drifted silently, their glowing eyes scanning the sands, unaware of the hidden chamber below. But Lyra knew it was only a matter of time before they discovered the canyon's secret. Suddenly, a sharp sound echoed through the canyon, metal scraping stone. Lyra froze, ears twitching, detecting the approach of something fast and intelligent. Eli gripped her hand instinctively, ready to defend her. From the shadows emerged a small group of alien soldiers, unlike the scouts they had seen before. Their armor shimmered with energy, weapons raised, scanning for life. Lyra's pulse quickened, but she did not panic. She whispered urgently, "We have to choose, fight or hide." Eli looked around, realizing there was no easy escape. The canyon narrowed, the walls closing in, leaving only two options: confront them or be trapped. Lyra pressed her hands against the glowing crystals, sending pulses of light across the chamber. The aliens hesitated, confused by the sudden display, their sensors struggling to adjust. Eli stepped beside her, raising the metal rod he carried, ready to strike if needed. The alien soldiers moved cautiously, their movements precise, almost mechanical. Lyra whispered, "We can't fight them all, but the crystals can give us a chance." She traced patterns on the walls, and the light formed a barrier that shimmered across the canyon floor. The aliens froze, scanning, uncertain of the strange energy. Eli breathed heavily, realizing that Lyra's connection to the crystals was their only advantage. Suddenly, one soldier broke formation, moving faster than the others. Lyra and Eli ducked behind a boulder, hearts pounding. The crystal barrier flickered, pulsating in rhythm with Lyra's heartbeat. She could feel the alien approaching, its presence heavy, almost oppressive. Eli gripped her hand tightly, whispering, "We survived together." The soldier's eyes glowed as it scanned the chamber, but the crystals confused its sensors. Lyra realized they had only moments. She whispered a command in her language, ancient and melodic, and the crystals responded, sending a wave of light that forced the alien back. The others hesitated, unsure of what to do, giving Lyra and Eli precious seconds. With a sudden surge of courage, Lyra grabbed Eli's arm, pulling him toward a narrow side passage. They slipped through just as the alien soldier recovered, its roar echoing through the canyon. The crystals pulsed again, covering their retreat in a soft, protective glow. Eli gasped, adrenaline surging. That was too close. Lyra nodded, her small frame tense but determined. "We're not safe yet, but we have a chance," she said quietly. The canyon twisted ahead, darker and more dangerous, but she could sense energy nodes that would guide them. Eli followed silently, trusting her instincts more than ever. Outside, the alien scouts circled above, unaware that their prey had survived the first encounter. Lyra's mind raced, analyzing possibilities, remembering tactics from her people's wars. She realized that survival depended on using the canyon, the crystals, and their bond together. Eli's trust gave her strength, his presence grounding her in a world that had abandoned her. The alien threat would not give up, and their journey had only just begun. Every step forward required cunning, speed, and courage. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the dark, the crystals reflecting off her markings. She whispered to herself, "We will survive, we must survive." And together, she and Eli disappeared deeper into the twisting canyon, leaving behind the first echoes of a battle that had already begun. The canyon grew narrower, shadows stretching unnaturally as the sun dipped lower. Lyra led Eli through twisting passages, her small frame moving with surprising agility. Every step was measured, every sound amplified in the silent rock. She could feel the alien scouts above, their energy probes sweeping the dunes, searching, analyzing. Eli followed closely, relying on her instincts more than his own eyes. The canyon seemed alive, the crystals pulsing softly, reacting to her presence. Lyra whispered, "We're not alone. Something is waiting ahead." Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, dust cascading from the canyon walls. A trap had been set, perfectly hidden until now. From narrow crevices, alien hunters emerged, sleek and deadly, surrounding them. Eli froze, heart hammering, Realizing there was no clear escape, Lyra crouched low, sensing the energy in the hunters, their precise movements, and calculating a plan. She pressed her hands against the nearest crystal, sending a pulse that rippled across the chamber. The hunters hesitated, their sensors confused by the strange light. Lyra whispered urgently, "Follow me and stay close. The crystals can guide us." The pulse of energy created faint glowing lines on the canyon floor, paths that were safe and invisible to the hunters. Lyra guided Eli along the lines, ducking behind rocks, avoiding energy traps. One hunter lunged, sensing life, but a sudden flash of crystal light forced it back. Eli realized that the crystals were more than a shield. They were a tool, a weapon in their hands. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly as she tapped into her latent power, a connection to the crystals that her people had always possessed. Energy flowed from the walls into her, enhancing her senses, sharpening her reflexes. She could anticipate the hunters' movements before they struck, reading the vibrations in the stone and sand. Eli watched in awe, struggling to comprehend what he saw. This small alien girl was more than fragile. She was a force to be reckoned with. They darted through narrow tunnels, the hunters following cautiously, confused by the shifting energy. Lyra whispered strategies, pointing to weak points in the canyon, predicting where the hunters would step. Eli began to move with purpose, guided by her instructions, striking rocks to create distractions. The hunters hissed and growled, frustrated by the clever tactics of two seemingly insignificant creatures. At one point, Lyra leapt to a higher ledge, crystals pulsing beneath her feet. Eli hesitated, but she signaled him to follow, and together they scaled the rocks, moving above the hunters' reach. From their elevated position, Lyra could see an exit ahead, a narrow archway leading toward open dunes. But the alien scouts above had noticed movement, and lights began to sweep in their direction. Lyra's heart raced, knowing that their freedom depended on timing, strategy, and trust. She whispered to Eli, "We move together, no hesitation." Eli nodded, adrenaline sharpening his senses, ready to follow her lead. The hunters below lunged again, but Lyra used the crystals to block their path, redirecting them into natural traps. Sand and rocks tumbled, scattering the hunters and slowing pursuit. Above, alien scouts hovered, beams of light slicing through the desert night. Lyra realized that the scouts were coordinating with the hunters, a network of relentless pressure. She pressed her palms to the glowing crystals, sending a pulse that disrupted their energy sensors. Eli felt the shift, understanding for the first time that Lyra's power was not just physical. It was a force that could manipulate alien technology. Breathing heavily, Lyra and Eli dashed toward the archway, shadows stretching behind them. The hunters roared in frustration, unable to match the combination of alien skill and human determination. The desert outside awaited, dangerous and unknown, but for the first time, Lyra felt hope. Eli followed closely, trusting her completely, ready to face whatever lay beyond the canyon. The night was far from over, but the first victory had been won. And in the pulse of the crystals, Lyra knew that her people's secrets could help them survive what was coming. The desert stretched before them, open and merciless, yet filled with opportunity. Lyra and Eli emerged from the canyon, muscles aching, hearts pounding, but spirits burning with determination. The alien hunters and scouts were still behind, their lights cutting through the dunes like blades. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly, the crystal's energy lingering in her veins, sharpening her reflexes. Eli followed closely, trusting her instincts completely, ready for anything. The wind whipped across the desert, carrying with it the faint hum of alien machinery. Lyra whispered urgently, "We run together, no stopping, no hesitation." They darted across the sand, following natural ridges and hidden paths Lyra sensed instinctively. Every movement was calculated, avoiding heat traps and shifting sand that could slow them. The alien scouts moved above, scanning tirelessly, while hunters pursued below, relentless and precise. Lyra pressed her palms to the crystals embedded in small desert stones along their path, sending pulses of light that disoriented their enemies. Eli gasped, seeing the alien machines falter, realizing for the first time that Lyra's people had left a hidden network of defenses across this desert. Her markings shimmered faintly, reacting to the energy in the sand, guiding them like a living map. The hunters roared in frustration, unable to adjust to the unpredictable pulses and shifting terrain. Hours seemed to stretch as they ran, the sun lowering toward the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows. Lyra could feel exhaustion creeping in, but she pushed forward, focusing on the energy of the crystals and the bond with Eli. They reached a narrow pass between jagged cliffs, the final barrier before open plains. Lyra scanned quickly, seeing traps and obstacles, then whispered to Eli, "We leap together, and we don't stop." Eli nodded, gripping her hand tightly, ready to trust her completely. With a deep breath, Lyra sprinted, energy surging through her veins from the crystals beneath her feet. Eli followed instantly, his own adrenaline carrying him through the harsh desert. The alien hunters lunged, but the crystal's pulses created illusions and distortions, scattering their aim. Beams of alien light flickered, missing their targets, as Lyra and Eli cleared the final pass. Beyond, the desert opened into a small hidden valley, a safe haven unknown to the aliens. Lyra stumbled slightly, exhausted but triumphant, Eli steadying her with a protective hand. She looked around, the valley's natural barriers shielding them from pursuit. The alien scouts hovered above, confused, their signals scrambled by the canyon's energy network. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to breathe, relief and determination mixing in her chest. Eli smiled, eyes shining. "We made it," he said, awe in his voice. Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of survival, the cost of life reclaimed from a world that had tried to take everything from her. She realized that the bond between them, human and alien, was stronger than any machine or hunter. The crystals pulsed softly beneath the valley, as if acknowledging their victory. Lyra whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning," knowing that the real challenge would come when they faced the wider world. The desert stretched behind them, filled with danger, yet they had proven that cunning, courage, and unity could overcome even the most relentless foe. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the valley, Lyra and Eli stood together. Two unlikely allies against impossible odds, a human and a survivor of an alien world. The stars above twinkled, silent witnesses to the bond formed in the heart of danger. Lyra felt her strength returning, her alien heritage merging with her will to survive. Eli's human courage and determination gave her hope she had never known. Together, they looked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever came next. The desert night was full of shadows and threats, but they had survived, and humanity's spark had ignited within them both. Somewhere in the dunes, the hunters regrouped, alien intelligence analyzing, but one truth remained clear: Lyra and Eli were not just victims. They were survivors, strategists, and a symbol of what could happen when two worlds joined in trust and courage. And in that quiet valley, beneath the alien stars, a new chapter began, filled with hope, defiance, and the promise of victory.